professional solutions to money, relationships, wellness, and more. Shine a light onto your day and into your life. Power Your Life with Dr. Joanne White.
Welcome to Power Your Life. I'm Joanne White, your host, and my first guest spent 18 years on the editorial staff at Money Magazine and was a Wall Street correspondent. Plus, he's written dozens of highly acclaimed books, including Everyone's Money Book and Master Your Money. He's known as the Money Answers Man, and he's here with us right now. Jordan Goodman, welcome.
Great to be with you, Dr. White.
It's my pleasure. You have so much information. We talked on the phone, and I'm trying to keep it all straight in my head. So one of the most important things is people are piling up their credit card debt,
Right.
and the interest is getting higher. So what do they need to do to make sure that they're getting the best deal and they're still being able to pay off their cards?
It is a huge problem. There's about $800 billion in credit card debt now. The average interest rate's about 14%.
That's amazing.
It
and
really is.
Higher, too.
Well, that's the average. There's a lot of people paying 22, 25,
Right.
30% if you miss your payments. So it's a real problem for an awful lot of people. So there's some specific things they can do. There are better credit cards to be had out there. You don't have to put up with these ridiculously high
Right.
rates. There's a free website, creditcardperks.com, for example, with all the best deals.
Creditcardperks.com. Okay,
Correct.
good.
And so what you do is get a card where you're going to get the most rewards, or whether it be frequent flyer points or hotel points or whatever it may be. Concentrate your spending on that one card so you get the most rewards. So that's one thing you can do. If you have a lot of credit card debt at high interest rates, the banks are not going to work with you for the most part. They love getting high interest rates.
Right, it helps them.
So the best thing to do in a case like that is to use a high-quality, non-profit credit counseling organization, because they have deals with these creditors you can't possibly get on your own, maybe 6-7% interest, something like that.
So do they actually work with people regardless of what kind of monies they're owing? Or
Correct. I mean, the minimum's like $1,000, and they'll go,
and then it goes
no
up.
limit on the upside as to how much credit card debt you
'cause-
can be in.
Okay,
Yeah.
and they do the negotiations.
It's already done. They've already got deals with all the Bank of
So
America
you
and
just-
Citibank.
okay.
You're fitting into an existing system, basically.
So they've already worked it out, and you just fit into it, and then it lowers your debt, and you're paying them really.
Correct. So they'll close down those accounts in which you've got debt, consolidate it all into one payment. You make one payment a month to them, and then they pay the creditors, and in 2, 3, 4 years you're out of debt, as opposed to the rest of your life being in servitude, basically.
But also, it's so much easier to just focus. If you have all these different credit cards out there, you're just focusing on
Once a
one.
month.
Right. So it
Correct.
makes it easier, and you don't forget.
Correct. So my favorite place is called Cambridge Credit Counseling, and their website is cambridgecredit.org. They've helped over 1 million people in this circumstance.
Wow,
So that's a way to get out of debt.
That's important. Now, you and I were also talking about how college tuition is skyrocketing,
Right.
and it doesn't seem that there's going to be any solution to lower it.
No.
And my experience in working with some college students and their families is that once they graduate, they can't be out on their own. And you talked about how it's changing the whole way people are
Changing
living.
society, it is. Over 50% of the people who recently graduated are going back and living at home, what I call the boomerang generation. They keep coming back.
I like
You
it.
think you're going to have the empty nest, it doesn't last 4 years, and then they come back. And the average debt's about $29,000 coming out of college. Many people way more than that.
Right.
50, 100, 150,000. And then if you add graduate school, that's another 2 or 300,000.
And that also depends on the kind of university or college you're going to and what kind of loans you're getting, right?
It's huge. So people aren't saving enough up front, so they're having to borrow an awful lot. And it's not only them, the parents are borrowing against
So
their home
everybody,
equity.
right, it's the whole family.
grandparents are borrowing for the kids. It's really a mess. So there are some things you can do. The first thing is to consolidate. If you've got a whole bunch of different loans in a bunch of different places, consolidate it all into one loan at the lowest possible interest rate. And there's a website to help you there, consolidatecollege.com. There's a federal program through the Department of Education, which can be kind of hard to figure out how to get through. Consolidatecollege.com can show you exactly how to do it, and that'll save you
So
some.
what do? They walk you through the process?
They actually help you fill out the forms, and there's a lot of tricky things to make sure you do it right.
Right.
Because you can only do it once, and you got to do it right the first time. But you can get, if you have a bunch of different loans at different interest rates, maybe consolidate it all at 3% or something like that.
And what's the typical loan right now for college?
Well, $29,000 is the average that people are graduating with. But as we said, a lot of people
And what's
have a
the
lot more.
percentage rate that they're paying?
3 is the lowest, 5, 6, 7, depending on what it was. If you have private loans, those tend to be much higher than the federal loans. It
Right.
could be 8, 9, 10%. So consolidate it all into one and save yourself a bunch of money.
Seems that consolidation is the way to go, too.
It is.
with
And there's
all
also
this.
something called the Income-Based Repayment Program, the IBR program.
What's that?
which is a program started in 2009. If you meet certain criteria, you pay on your loans for 10 years on time, and then after that, no matter how much you owe, the rest of it is forgiven.
Wow.
So that's saving you 20 years off your student loans.
And what kind of criteria do you have?
If you work in the nonprofit sector, if you work for the state, local, or federal government, or if you're what's called a hardship provision. You're way more debt than your income.
So there are many different ways to do it.
And the consolidatedcollege.com people can show you how that program
All right,
works.
so they're really helpful, and they'll lead you through the whole process.
Absolutely, you bet.
Mortgages, okay. So people have high mortgages, and you and I were talking about initially they're paying off their interest. They think they're paying off their principal,
No.
but for years they're paying their interest. How can they get through it faster and smarter?
Well, the good news is there is a program, there's a strategy.
I love this. So many strategies.
The mortgage optimization strategy, which literally can allow you to pay your mortgage off in about 5 to 7 years instead of 30 years on the same level of income you've got today. Now, this is not something your bank is going to tell you about, okay?
So don't go to your banks,
No,
right?
you can go and say, I want mortgage optimization. They will have no idea what you're talking about, frankly.
Okay.
And there is a website for this as well, truthinequity.com. And basically, this is how it works.
Yeah.
You use a home equity line of credit, a HELOC as they call it, which is at a lower rate, it's tied to the prime rate. You get about 3% rate on that today. You use it almost like your checking account, and you get your first mortgage into the HELOC, and you keep your income, which would normally be sitting in a checking account, in the HELOC. Every day you're making progress on the principal, as opposed to with a 30-year mortgage, you're making very little progress on the principal for 15 years or so. So every month that goes by, this is going to be amazing to you, every month that goes by, your mortgage payment goes down as you pay your mortgage off faster until the whole thing is gone in 5 to 7 years.
Which is incredible because firstly you get out of it faster, and the rate is lower, and it's ingenious.
It works. Now again, this is something banks aren't going to tell you about, but it's been working for a lot of people. It takes some discipline. There are 3 things you need to make this work. You got to have positive equity in your house because you're going to be borrowing against that in the HELOC. You have to have a decent credit score, maybe 680 or higher, to qualify for the HELOC. You got to have some positive cash flow because that's going to make it work.
Okay, so that's wonderful. You are filled with information. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Ahead, looking to buy a house? After the break, we'll have some tips to help lessen the stress of looking for a new home when Power Your Life returns. Stay tuned. We're back. If you've ever bought a house, you know that the experience can be more than overwhelming. From how to choose the right realtor to ways to put an offer on a home, Lauren Cronmiller is here with great advice to make buying a home less stressful. She's a realtor with Keller Williams in Doylestown, PA. Welcome,
Thank
Lauren.
you very much for having me.
It's great because people need to know this information, and sometimes they struggle with it. I'm working with 2 people right now who are kind of nervous. It's their first home that they're buying, and they don't know the ropes. So what do they need to do, firstly, in choosing the right realtor?
They can go in an interview process. Actually, one of the things that makes me cringe as a realtor is when somebody's driving by a home, they see a house they like, they automatically call the woman or man on the sign. And they're already representing the seller.
Right.
So I always compare it, would you use your spouse's divorce lawyer? No, who would? So it's very similar. So I always say, do your homework, get a referral, because at least you know them. They've already gone through the interview process if they've had a good experience. That's where I get most of my business, through referrals.
Through referrals, which is important. Now, do you recommend having a contract? Because sometimes you have a contract with a realtor and they're not doing what they need to do, and you're stuck.
Right. Well, a lot of people think they are. They're not. They can easily ask to be released from the contract.
Okay, but do you usually sign contracts?
Yes, I do, because it protects myself.
But what about them, the person buying the home?
Well, I always say, if you're ever unhappy with the way I'm representing you, then we'll sign a release. I'd rather them be happy than unhappy.
And what's the standard time for a contract? 6 months?
6
3
months, yes.
So don't go for a whole year if you don't have to.
Correct. And you make the terms too, because in essence, I work for them.
People need to know that and remember that, right?
Right. So if they are only comfortable with 3 months, then we'll do 3 months. Like, let me prove myself to you.
Right. I think that's important. Also, What do people need to think about when they're buying a home? What kind of decisions do they need to make? And what do they need to convey to you, the realtor, so that you know what to look for?
Well, they need to tell me what they want. And if you're a couple, you also need to be on the same page. Because I've worked with people who are on two completely different pages. Well, it's very hard to please two people if you don't meet in the middle.
So they need to have a little bit of a conversation and get together before they tell you what they need, and because you don't want to have arguments and you're in confusion.
Oh, and I've had it too. When you get to the house and one's unhappy because they didn't want to look at it and the other one's in love, what do you do?
Right.
So get a list of what you want in the home and make those your top 5 is what I call. And present it to your realtor and tell them this is what I want. And you might have to compromise on a couple things, but we really do try to stick to that list.
When is the right time to fire a realtor?
Whenever you're unhappy. I always say, if ever you're unhappy, just get it over with. Why drag it out? Because you're only going to get more upset, more stressed out, and
it's not going to work.
And exactly. And so I think it's better off just to cut ties as early as possible if you are unhappy and just move on, because this process can be stressful. We try to make it as stress-free as possible, but it's not always the case.
What happens, let's say people find the great house, you've taken them to it, and they want it, they love it, they put in an offer. What can they expect, and what's the process that they have to follow then?
Well, first you have to hold on your hats because it moves quickly. You have to apply for your mortgage right away. You have to file an application. You have to schedule the home inspections, radon inspections,
which is really
termites.
important. Don't go without doing all those inspections.
Correct. And then the appraisal has to be ordered. So there's a lot of stuff that happens within the first 15 days of you placing an offer. After that, then the lender's you're gonna work hand in hand with the lender, because there's a bunch of paperwork that you're gonna have to get to them.
But do you help through that process, even just by holding people's hands?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm with them every step of the way. Most of the time I do work with first-time home buyers, so there's a bunch of questions that I do have to answer. And for example, things we might take for granted, like running up a credit card because you want to buy furniture, which is a major no-no, or purchasing a new car to put in your new garage, a definite no-no again. But sometimes they don't know these things, so I have to educate them on what to do, what not to do, and just wait until after they get the keys.
Get the mortgage approved, the loan approved, and then move past.
Then move past, right.
Do houses have personalities?
Oh, absolutely. I walked into a house one time, they actually had a boulder built into the home with the cinder blocks in the basement.
What was that house saying? Was it screeching? Was it screaming at you?
No, it was in the middle of nowhere. It was in like woods, and there were boulders all around it, but it was the last thing you expect.
But it was growing actually in the house itself?
It was inside of the house, yes.
So nobody bought it?
My clients did not like it, no, because he wanted a man cave, so it took out of his man cave, so it wasn't for him. So we moved on and found another one. But yeah, houses have personality.
And you were talking about taking a couple of people through a house where they were was it bats, you said?
There were, bat infested. It was a bank-owned property, been vacant for years, had a bunch of bats. We got scared, and we all ended up screaming like girls and going in rooms of the house.
So that, again, that was not a house that those people
No, they
bought.
didn't. No, it needed a little bit too much work.
Okay. Not only that, it's infested with bats.
It's
right?
infested. The bank was taking care of it. They just didn't do a good job.
Okay. Well, you're doing a great job giving people what they need. Thank you so much, Lauren. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thanks again for having me.
Great. Unlike the movie Identity Theft, having your identity stolen is no laughing matter. After the break, we'll talk about a new technology to help keep you and your money safe, so stay tuned. Welcome back. Do you know that in 2013, identity theft victims suffered more than $24.7 billion in direct and indirect losses? Good news is that there's a new technology that's been created to help secure credit card transactions over the internet and your phone. It's called iPin. Here to tell us how it works via Skype is iPin's technology advisor, Steven School. Welcome, Steven.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here, because it's so very important. And people, you and I were talking about so many stories, including what happened to me with Target and my mortgage with Bank of America, sorry folks. However, many more people are having problems with their credit cards being breached via the internet and their cell phones. What is the problem with that? Why is that happening?
It's happening because when you buy something online, or when you buy it at the store, your credit card information is kept by that merchant and they process it separately from you. So it becomes a transaction between the merchant, say Target, and your bank. So they're keeping that credit card information to do that processing, and then of course they'll keep it to process any chargebacks or deal with your account. So it's on file basically forever.
So, right, it's on file indefinitely, and there's nothing you can do, even if you, what happens if you leave, let's say you decide to end your relationship with a Target or something else? Do they still have that on their files?
They do. They're not adequately dealing with that credit card information, and obviously they're not protecting it well enough because we've seen so many merchants get the information stolen.
Your company has this incredible technology that's really going to help people safeguard their money, their credit card, all their very valuable information. What is it?
It's called iPin Debit, and it's a small device that you use to allow you to purchase online or using your mobile phone with your debit card using your PIN, similar to how you would get cash out of the ATM or using your PIN debit card at the store. And what happens when you use your PIN online is none of your information leaves your phone. The merchant only gets your money because you've instructed your bank to send the money and your order. So they never get your credit card or debit card information.
How does it work with, let's say, with the computer? How do people set it up so that it's easy and seamless?
You set it up initially. You have to have one of these devices. And once you program this device either in with your computer or your phone, then the device is no longer needed, and you can start purchasing online. It will prompt you to use your PIN number. It'll also send you a SS to confirm the purchase. So actually we have 3 levels of security using 3 different systems as it goes through its encrypted process of sending the money from your bank account to the merchant for your purchase.
So it's encrypted. Speak again, what are the 3 levels?
The first level is you're purchasing online. You have to sign into your account.
Right.
The second level is using your PIN number. So those are internet processes. Then the SMS message comes to your phone via SMS messages, which is a completely separate system. So the possibility of number 1, anybody intercepting all 3 of those, and then number 2, knowing what was sent because it's encrypted, are almost impossible today.
This sounds incredible. When can we get it?
Let's see, I'll send you one now. No,
please do, I'm ready.
They're not available to the public now. They will be pushed out by major retailers and websites in about 60 days. So you'll start seeing iPin technology on some sites. We're testing with some major vendors online right now, actually.
Now, the vendors, how are they responding to this? Are they favorable?
Very favorable. It does 2 things for the merchants and vendors because they want to secure your information as well. Dealing with all these chargebacks, stolen credit card numbers is a huge cost for them and, of course, negative publicity.
Right.
But number 2, they're going to pay about 1/3 as much to process your transaction using PIN compared to a credit card transaction. So they're very interested in this technology for both of those reasons.
It's also saving them money, both on the front end and also on the back end in case something happens where there is some compromising, right?
Absolutely. You know, they're not going to get your credit card information, so they can't lose it. It cannot be stolen from them.
Is it going to be expensive for the consumer, for let's say me? And so if I need to purchase this device, am I going to spend a fortune or is it going to be reasonable?
It's going to be very reasonable. Many merchants are now talking about pushing the devices out to their customers at no charge.
Wow.
Some talking $3 or $4. I've heard some say $9 or $10, but that's the maximum. We're working very diligently to get the no-cost version implemented and sent out, because we feel it's a very important technology for the public to start using as soon as possible.
Now, Steve, is this just for the United States or is this going global?
No, this is worldwide. It's been tested in several countries. This is a worldwide rollout. There's different systems in different countries as to the kinds of credit card technology that are being used, either chips or mag strips, and that's all changing every year by country. So we're keeping up with that, and our device works with all of those technologies.
I think this is a win-win situation, like you said, for both the merchant and the consumer. The idea is incredible. I can't wait to get mine in the mail, right? Thanks so much, Stephen. It's been wonderful.
Thank you. I appreciate your having me on the show.
Thanks. Power Your Life will be right back. Ahead, find out what's hot for next week. Life is full of transitions. Some of the transitions we expect, like going to school, working, getting older, and there are others that seem to steamroll us when we least expect it. How can we be ready to handle even the unexpected? Well, it's about taking care of the obvious, and that means you. Your response affects your health and your success. So make a decision. Decide right now that you can handle this time of change. Remind yourself of other changes when you came out on top. Get the well-needed exercise, good nutrition, and some form of relaxation and some quiet time, but please don't hide away like a hermit. You need to feel the company and the support of caring friends and family, especially at the times of uncertainty. Create moments to enjoy and take pleasure in your surroundings and in your life, even if things can feel bleak. One of the best ways to face the unpredictable is to stay open and flexible. Look at the change in a positive light. It may be leading you down a new path of both discovery and opportunity, even if it may not feel that way right now. Once you move past loss, confusion, and any uncertainty that transition can bring, you'll have the renewed energy and also a new way of looking at you and at the world. Thanks for being with us tonight. Next week, she's from the Ripa Center for Women's Health and Wellness at Cooper Hospital, Dr. Laura Picciano. She'll join us to talk about stress and its effect on your health. Find out how to beat the stress trap and why sleep disturbances are so important. Remember that you have the power to power your dreams and power your life.